Good morning. It's okay. Thank you for the nod, because I looked at it. I can't hear that speaker. So if you would all join me in silencing your cell phones, I certainly appreciate that. As I continue to look at mine, we have a significant time this morning. September 11th is quickly approaching, and part of our ceremony today, as we raise the flag, will be directly at 9/11. So that's why I continue to look down at my phone here to make sure that I'm on time, to make sure that everyone continues. So once again, welcome. I'm Byron Matthews with Cheyenne Fire and Rescue. We're absolutely pleased to see you all come out and join us today for the rededication of the Clark Hose Bell. It's a great community effort. It's a great community bell. The significant history that you'll hear about today of the bell and the fire department, it's super exciting. So it's, as I was sharing earlier, we've had the opportunity to literally and figuratively cement the bell back where it belongs. We brought it from one area of the community back to the fire station where it began its life. So we're very excited about that. As we move through today, we'll have several speakers that talk about the different portions of the bell, talk about the great community effort that brought us here today. And with that,
oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watch were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
and ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome and thank Stevie. He did a wonderful job.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, I'd like to welcome Pastor Steve Earnshaw for our invocation.
Go ahead and take a seat if you're near a chair. Let's pray. Gracious and loving God, this morning we ask your blessing upon this fire station, and more importantly upon those who will call this place their home for hours and days at a time. They will do this as they wait for the request for help that comes in summer or winter, rain or shine, day or night. They will be waiting to risk their lives as so many have before them. Lord, the walls of this station have seen decades of firefighters going through their drills and their maintenance tasks, waiting for the call that would put their training to use. The men and women who have dedicated their lives to the protection of this city's citizens have put themselves in danger numerous times. They've responded to calls from people suffering life-threatening health conditions. They've responded to calls from people experiencing the worst possible tragedies and have worked tirelessly to save life and property from the ravages of fire. And now, Lord, this station has been modernized, and we are here to rededicate it for the purpose that it has fulfilled for years. We ask your blessing upon all who have been connected with this station in years past. We ask your blessing upon all who look forward to working and living in this station in the future. Watch over this station and all who enter it. Keep them safe. Bring harmony and peace to the firefighters who will live and work here. We thank you, Lord, for their service and dedication to the protection of the citizens of this community. Help them find joy in their calling, faith in their fellow firefighters, and hope even when they stare into the face of tragedy. We thank you for our city's commitment to equipping these men and women with the best facility possible. Lord, let them know how much we appreciate them and hear our prayers on their behalf. We pray this in gratitude for all the goodness you bring to our lives. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor. Next, it's my pleasure to introduce the Chief of Cheyenne Fire Rescue, Chief Greg Hoggett.
Good morning, and thank you for coming out for this historic rededication of the Clark Hose Bell. The J.T. Clark Hose Bell Company. In the early days, the bell was used to notify the public, especially the fire department, that there was a fire. As the signal bell transitioned from this type of bell to the electric bell, the fire service introduced codes associated with locations and types of alarms. No longer where the bells are located in the community, but now located in the fire stations. Many cities installed alarm boxes on neighborhood street corners, where citizens who saw an emergency could pull the alarm box, which would send a signal to the local office of the local fire station that there was an emergency. Each alarm box would have a special code for the location, and the firemen would respond based upon the number of times in sequence the bell was struck. Now, the signal bell could also be used to transmit the need for additional companies to respond to assist, and led to terminology in the fire service as strike a second alarm or fill out the box. As the technology evolved, the bell is no longer used as a notification of alarms, but we still use the bell for our most solemn occasion, known as the bell ceremony, which is performed at a firefighter's funeral in remembrance of those who have fallen. In the past, as a firefighter began their tour duty, it was the bell that signaled the beginning of the day's shift. Throughout the day and night, each alarm sounded by the bell, which summoned these brave souls to fight fires and to place their lives in jeopardy for the good of their fellow citizen. When the fire was out and the alarm had come to an end, it was the bell that signaled the completion of the call. When a firefighter had paid the supreme sacrifice, it was the mournful toll of the bell that solemnly announced a comrade's passing. We utilize these traditions as symbols which reflect the honor and respect of those who have given so much and who have served so well. To symbolize the devotion that these brave souls had for their duty, a special signal of 5 rings, 5 times each, represents the end of a comrade's duties and that they will be returning to quarters. And so to those who have selflessly given to their lives of good and fellow man, their task completed, their duties well done. To our comrades, their last alarm, they are going home. In the early days, as Cheyenne was a train city, the early years utilized the train whistle to notify the volunteers to respond to an emergency. As the city began to grow, it was determined that the whistle was not an effective way to notify responders and was replaced with the bell. In 1890, the city purchased 2 bells, the Durant Bell on the north side and the J.T. Clark Bell for the south side. These bells served the city until 1935, when the hose company was raised. As the Union Pacific Railroad liquidated unused property for railroad expansion, the bell was moved further south in the city to the Lincoln Park near the Johnson Junior High swimming pool. In 2017, an idea was created and fostered to relocate the bell to the current fire station, Cheyenne Fire Rescue Station 2, known as the Clark Hose Company, to give it a permanent home within the fire department. And through the efforts of Councilman Richard Johnson, the community, and support, and many others that are going to be recognized here today, we welcome the bell home and rededicate it to those firefighters and citizens who make this possible. Thank you.
Next, it's my pleasure to introduce Councilman Pete Laybourne.
Thanks. And I'm glad to follow the chief here because of his history of how the whole system of fire suppression in the city occurred. And I want to assure everyone here, and I think it's a message that the community needs to hear, is that as we grow here to the south, those facilities need to match that growth, which is not an easy thing for us to fund and manage. So it's great to be here today and certainly have the weather for it, but there's a lot to do, and we certainly want to make sure that the city is backing these individuals and following up on the process that gets us the services that we need. Thank you.
Next from your program, we have a slight change. Councilman Roybal was ill today, so with that, I'll ask Councilman Jeff White to join us.
Thanks, Byron. It's an honor to welcome this important symbol of our community's history back to its former glory, and also welcome it to its new home here at Station Number 2, which is where it rightfully belongs. There are a few people I wanted to recognize, and the first are my Ward 1 City Council colleagues, Councilman Laybourne and Mr. Roybal, who, when I went to them and asked if we could use some of our Ward 1 funds to help complete this project, they readily agreed because they recognized how important it was to do this. To my former colleague, Councilwoman Annette Williams, whose dogged determination is a big reason that we're all here to celebrate this event. And thank you for keeping on us to make sure that we were going to get this done even after your term ended. Thank you. To my colleague, Councilman Richard Johnson, who quite honestly is the best fundraiser I have ever seen in my life. And if it weren't for him, we wouldn't be here today, because he went out every day, day after day, and even created an account at the city treasurer's office called the Saved by the Bell Project, and we were able to get enough funds for today's event so that we could all be here today. And then there's one person who can't be here today, and he really needs to be recognized because he was the originator of this idea. And we should all pause to remember and give thanks for Mr. Gene Palin. Gene loved Cheyenne, and he loved Cheyenne's history. And this project was born from that love. Sadly, he was taken from us, and Mary Jane informed me on the drive over here, he was taken from us 1 year ago today. So it's entirely appropriate and bittersweet and inspiring that we recognize today in his honor because it really never would have happened without him. And so I hope he's looking down on this event today with great pride, because him and his efforts and the efforts of Mrs. Qualls are really the reason that we're here today. And Mary Jane, Jean's widow, is with us today too. And thank you, ma'am, for honoring us with your presence and honoring your beloved husband by being here today in his absence. Lastly, in a few days, we'll commemorate the 17th anniversary of one of the most heinous and tragic events to ever occur in our country. So on this day and at this fire station, let us remember all of our first responders, fire, police, paramedics, from the brave men who served our city at the J.T. Clark Hose House at 12th and Warren in the latter part of the 19th and early part of the 20th centuries, to the brave men and women who serve our city today in all corners of our city, in all corners of our community, our state, and our country. The ones who run into danger when everyone else runs out. May God bless you, may God bless our community, and may God continue to bless the United States. Thank you.
Next, it's my pleasure to introduce former Councilman Annette Williams. Come on up, Annette. As Councilman White shared, Annette was instrumental, and we're pleased to have you here today to join us.
As I get my papers together here. Good morning, everyone. First, I would like to thank the late Mr. Gene Palin for the enthusiasm he had for this project and for inviting me to be part of this historical moment. I would also like to thank his wife, Mrs. Jean Palin, for attending today in honor of her husband. Also sitting next to her is Mrs. Paula Qualls. I would like to thank her for her years that her and Mr. Palin had worked to get this historic bell to its place here today. I am positive that Mr. Palin would be proud of what has been accomplished with this project, and we thank him for his various community contributions. My involvement here today was because of Mr. Palin. His interest in reuniting the Clark Hose Bell with Fire Station 2 on West Fox Farm Road. Mr. Palin and Mrs. Palin met with me at the old location at Lincoln Park, where we had several conversations, and he shared the history and the importance of the bell and how we wanted to make sure the bell stayed on the south side. We worked with former Fire Chief Jim Martin on suggestions for relocating the bell, as it was to be moved to the new public service building. But after consulting with state and city engineer departments, we realized that it was going to cost a lot more money to make this move happen. So we were a little discouraged because we needed to find funding. But at the same time, we were somewhat thrilled, as we could plan to move the bell to Fire Station 2. I would like to give a special thanks to Councilman Richard Johnson of Ward 3, as without his funding, fundraising, and collaboration efforts, we would not be here today to rededicate this piece of history to the new Clark Hose Fire Station 2. I began working on this project with Mr. Palin before leaving office, and I appreciated that Councilman Johnson was more than willing to pick up this project and to see it through. Today means a lot to me, as it brought us together to celebrate and rededicate this bell to our firefighters and our community. I am thankful and proud to have had the opportunity to be part of this historical event, and I think Mr. Palin would also be proud to know that his vision for reuniting the Clark Hose Bell with Fire Station 2 is fulfilled. This bell represents a long-standing pride that Cheyenne has for its firefighters and its appreciation for the endless dedication to provide safety to our community. I would like to say thank you to my Ward 1 colleagues and to the community of Cheyenne, Wyoming, for coming out today and for sharing this moment with us. And I just want to say to our firefighters, I wish you health and safety when you're out there fighting for us. Thank you, and God bless you.
Next, Councilman Johnson, Richard Johnson, is going to join us, and as we get the chuckle, it was fun to share a smile, because obviously you've heard a lot about his fundraising efforts and the things that he's done, and we wouldn't be here today without that. So with that, thank you, sir.
Oh, you're welcome. The last time Byron and I actually met at this station, he sprayed me with a fire hose. And in all fairness to him, I deserved it. Actually, I get to do the best part of the ceremony for the community endeavors that I undertake and the people that support me in everything that I undertake. And so it's odd, when I was nominated to do a TEDx speech, I was going to actually draft a document that was called Community, the Untapped Resource, that literally you don't need to rely on government or anything else. As long as you put out an idea, the community will usually come to your support, really through effective marketing. So with that, the first, I'll just go down the list here as it's stated on your program. Thank you to the Greater Cheyenne Foundation, Clint O'Connor, who's actually a firefighter. I know he was usually with the Honor Guard, but he gave me a phone call and brought forward for some leadership, their leadership class to look to actually do a completion of a project. And so Clint gave me a call, and so the Greater Cheyenne Chamber of Commerce and the Greater Cheyenne Foundation came forward and gave us a very sizable donation to assist with this. Then last year, and I have to thank both of them, coinciding with the Firefighters Local 279 and then the Firefighters Local 279 Auxiliary. And to Derek and Andrew, yes, I still remember when I thought I was giving a speech about this project at the Firefighters Ball last year, and you all of a sudden tricked me into a ceremony where you handed me a coin and everything else for my community advocacy. So it's appreciated, but I'm going to call you out now because you didn't know this was coming. Then to Linda Wepner and the Century 21 Bell Real Estate team. Linda has helped me with multiple projects, and so once again, she called me when she saw I put out the All Points Bulletin in regard to this project. And so Linda, thank you for everything, including this bell and everything else that you do for this community. The next one is kind of odd that it happened today. Dad's Cafe is actually, there's snacks in the back bay here, but Robert at Dad's Cafe, actually, when I went and picked up cookies and cinnamon rolls this morning, told me that today was their last day in business. Oh, we actually got a call. So to Robert, for everything that you've done, thank you. I don't see Pat came today, but my friend Jim's mom has helped me ever since fundraising with the skate park nearly 12 years ago. And she came forward and said, Richard, I really respect first responders. And so her donation as a private individual was probably the largest one, and it was the least expected when she came down to the clerk's office to deliver her money. Linda Vossler, I don't know if she's here. And then Gabriel, Jasmine, Minnie Gabe, and I don't see your daughter, so I guess she must be at work. So to Pena Business Services, thank you once again for everything you do, including, in this case, Gabriel, during tax season. He actually was 11 years in business, and so he gave 11% of his tax preparation monies to the Bell Project in the month of February. So thank you for that. Mary Hartman, I know she came up, she came and spoke earlier to me saying thank you, and I now respectfully offer it to you. And on behalf, she had asked me as a courtesy to contact you to let you know that this donation from her was in memory of Jean. Hickey and Evans, okay, I don't even want to touch this one, but because I know that they're the firefighter union representation, so I guess they still are looking out for their own. So the Charity Project is my renegade charity movement to help nonprofits, and this was one of the many projects we took on in 2017 and 2018 to improve upon our community. Mary Jane, thank you for your donation to in memory of your husband. I can remember when Annette first called me on this project, and I told her instead of using all government funds that I would get the community involved and we could see it done through fundraising. And I remember when I first did my first speech on TV5, Gene called me last April and said, Richard, he goes, I have all these ideas, but the one thing I'm not good at is fundraising. And he goes, so you're going to be the one that sees this through. So thank you to Gene for a vote of confidence that he knew that I was going to have this actually happen. And it was kind of bad when when it was mentioned that today was the anniversary of his passing. It was interesting because I remembered hearing that, and I knew it was when I was stuck in Hurricane Irma in Miami last year when I had first heard the news. Then Jackie Lacey, this was another in memory of her husband who had passed away, who was a member of the Cheyenne Fire Department. The Cheyenne Historic Preservation Board, I did not go to their meeting intending to get a donation from them. I just kind of was giving them an update on where I was at, and especially to Gary, and I don't see him here today, but Gary actually brought forth the motion for the Historic Preservation Board to donate $1,000 in Gene's name. Gene was an active member of the Cheyenne Historic Preservations Board, and so this was one of the first things that they had put money that they had from fundraisers to actually historic preservation. So thank you to everyone on the Historic Preservation Board. I still stand by it. I did not go to you for money. It just kind of happened that way. And then to my fellow council members, Pete Laybourne, Scott Roybal, and Jeff White. I know that Ward 1 is not my ward, even though this is like my second home. I always seem to spend more time in Ward 1 than Ward 3. But the three of you, this was an amazing idea. I know that you had all worked on it prior to me doing fundraising, but everything that you guys do for the community, the public service, the communication, everything is so well appreciated from my fellow council members, and that goes for everyone else on council. But the three of these guys actually stood up when we first started talking about actually using some contingency funds to make something that everyone in the Ward 1 could be proud of. And then to former Councilwoman Annette Williams, I want to thank you once again. I don't come up with ideas, I execute them. And so you came to me and said, Richard, this is what I would like to do. And it was like, all right, let's get to work. And so I want to thank you for putting the bug in my ear, because really that's how I do everything. It's, all other people's ideas, I just make them happen. And then to the countless with Coffee Depot, once again, they've donated coffee today. But I did fundraisers at Coffee Depot, Dad's Cafe, and the Fridays in the Asher. And so we always have the bucket out for whatever projects we work on. So for the many other anonymous and miscellaneous donations through all of our fundraising endeavors, thank you to the community of Cheyenne for always having my back and for actually completing a project. So thank you all for coming, especially today. And by all means, take advantage of Dad's Cafe and Coffee Depot, because it's free.
Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our ceremony for the day. As Councilman mentioned, we do have refreshments inside the bay here. Please take a few minutes, come up, look at the bell, look at the new design, take some photos. I'll pose any of our fire staff, including the chief. I know he loves when I obligate him for photos because he likes to have his picture taken. But in all seriousness, as we conclude today, as part of our community, I truly appreciate everyone that's here and everything that the community has done to allow this recognition of the community, the great people who have supported the community, and this fire station. So with that, once again, thank you so much for being here today, and thank you for your continued support.